Welcome back to my sewing corner. Today I'm going to tell you how I keep my fabric and patterns and sewing tools and notions from taking over my small sewing corner and my 650 square foot apartment. So here is all my sewing equipment and fabric and for garments and quilting and everything like that. And the first thing I have learned about living in a small space is you can't have anything you don't have a place for. So where am I going to put all this? I have a plan. I've cleared this little space up here in my hall closet. I know it doesn't look too big, but believe me, it's all going to fit in there. The first ones I'm going to show you are the 4 clear ones with the blue handles. And these are pretty much my staple ones. This one here holds projects, my works in progress. And what that really means for me is that this one will have things that are already cut and ready to be assembled that I'm working on. I have 2 of them in here, things that I'm kind of like working on in between things. And then I happen to have my next project that I need to work on as a gift for a friend in here, so that I know that that one needs to get headed up. This box here, which is a pretty heavy box, holds all of my sewing equipment. And by that I mean that I have all of my sewing machine accessories in here. I do have things for my vintage singers, bobbins for some of my machines. I have all of my cams for some of my older things. And in these, I have several of these. And they hold all of my sewing feet. These are all my slant shank feet for my Singer slant shanks. This is all my Singer straight shanks. I have one here for my Husqvarna Viking, my Rocketeer, different things. So all of that sort of stuff is in this box, all in one place, so I don't have to go searching depending on which of my machines I'm using for my equipment. It's all right here in this one tote. This is also another tote for projects, and this one is labeled projects that are planned. So these are the ones I want to be working on in the near future, and I have them all folded and ready to go. All the fabric's been washed and prepared, and they're also labeled so that I know what this project is, and all neatly stacked in here, you can see. So these are pretty much the ones I'm really excited about and that are next up on the block. And then under that, here, I have this box, which is all full of interfacings. All kinds of different interfacings, whether they be for crafting or garment sewing, applique, doesn't matter. They're all in this box. And then I keep them in gallon-sized Ziploc bags, which help me to quickly grab what I need, and it's all labeled. So I know exactly what it is, and I can quickly just sort through here and grab the bag that I am looking for. One thing that I really wanted to take into priority with my storage solutions was that I wasn't going to be searching a lot or having to really struggle in that space I have to be able to find what I need. So these are just some ways that I'm making it easy on myself. I'll go ahead and get the next stack up for you. We have these totes. Now these totes are the exact same totes, but they're different colors. These ones are the blue see-through tote with the blue handles. And these are probably my most exciting totes for me because these 4 totes hold my fabric stash. Now, I'm no different than most of you. I love fabric. When I go through the store, it's really hard for me not to buy everything I see. I have a budget, so that holds me back, and I also have a space constraint. So one of the rules I generally set for myself to keep within this space that I have is I typically try not to buy fabric I don't have a project for. I only break that rule when I actually have room in a tote and I'm not really planning any upcoming projects, and I might have a little extra space, and if it's really pretty fabric. But if it doesn't fit in here, I can't have it. That's a hard, fast rule I really try to keep to. And in a small space, you sort of have to do it. So the way I have my fabric stash totes organized is basically by size. I don't do it by color or type or anything like that because this is all I have to work with. This one on the bottom are all projects actually that I have set up for quilting. So quilting projects that I bought the fabric to go together specifically for a quilt I have in mind are in here. This tote up here is just my general fabric stash. It holds 1 and 2 yard lengths. This is another just general fabric stash. It holds 1/4 and 1/2 yard lengths of fabric. And the one on the bottom is another fabric stash box with 1 1/2 yards in it. Now, that being said, yes, it's a fabric stash, but when I bought them all, I did sort of have some general ideas of what I was going to do with it. And there are labels on here to kind of remind me what I thought about making when I got that piece of fabric or that group of fabric. For instance, this one here says pillowcase. This over here says, where is, oh, there it is. Goes together, possible quilt. So I have some ones here that I had an idea for. Anyway, you get the idea. I may not use it for that, but generally when I look at a fabric, I'm like, this is what I'm going to do with it. And I let myself buy it. If I'm like, that's really pretty, I have no plan for it. If I don't have room that I know of in here, can't come home. That's just the rule. Unfortunately for me, that's how it has to be. So that's my pretty much general fabric stash box. Next up is a little duo here. These are the clear boxes with the purple handles. And you'll notice one is empty. And that is pretty much because these are for garment sewing, and I'm just getting into garment sewing. It's really, really new for me. So I do also know that when I am garment sewing, it takes a lot more fabric than crafting and quilting. I can get 1/8 or 1/2 yard of fabric and use it for my quilts, and I'll get a lot of shapes out of that, or I'll get a lot of craft use out of that. You don't always need really big lengths of fabric. That's a little bit different for garment sewing. You need a bigger stash for that. So my space wise that I have, this is what I'm allotted. I'm allotted 2 of these containers, and one is empty. So we'll ignore that one for the moment. This one here is actually really full, but believe it or not, in this container, I actually have 7 projects ready to go. So that's really a lot for this 15-quart container to hold. I'm really impressed by that. You need about 2.5 to 3 yards of fabric minimum, basically, is what I'm sort of learning for any garment, and you need more for that for a dress, so to speak. So 7 in here is pretty good. And what I have is I have a pajama set, top and bottom I'm prepared for, another pajama set, 1, 2, 3 blouses that I'm going to make, or shirts. And then the bottom here is the only one I have not a use for, and that's because I found this really pretty fabric. It's 3 yards at a thrift store for $1, and it's really good 100% cotton. It's not thin. It's a really it's a thicker one. You can feel the quality is pretty good, and don't have a use for it, but I had the space for it, and for $1 it came home. So that's what's in here, and 7 projects. So I'm really excited because I think that's going to really help the fact that I only can have 2 totes for garment sewing. One thing about my fabric that I forgot to mention that I do want to say really quick, and everybody has their own way, so this is just my way, is before I put my fabric away in the totes, I prepare them. And for me, that just means washing them and folding them. I don't, so to speak, iron them. If I take them right out of a warm dryer, I can fold them right away, and they're generally fine. I'm going to have to iron them before I use them anyway, but they actually come out really nice. They're not all wrinkled or anything if I just take them out of the warm dryer and fold them immediately. So, but they are all pre-washed and ready to go, which makes it really easy because I'm not taking time later when I really want to get started on a project to wait to prepare my fabric. But that being said, I have room here for, I'm guessing, about 7 more projects. Can you imagine having 14 sewing projects ready to go right here in 2 totes? I think that's amazing. And as I said, they are 15-gallon totes, so even though it's a big tote, it's not really giant. So I'm really, really impressed by these. Speaking of right out of the dryer, I've got another one. This one is going to go in that empty garment tote. You know what I didn't mention about the other tote is not all of those fabrics are 2.5 to 3 yards. Those are just the blouses. The ones I have set up for my pajamas and my sets are actually between, oh my gosh, this one right here I think is 6.5 yards. And in the other tote, 2 of those were 5.5 yard fabrics because they were for some pajamas with some crop pants and some shorts. So that actually makes these totes even more amazing when you think of 7 projects, and some of them are quite a bit of yardage. Okay, I had space space on the side of that closet for this little row of minis. Now these are just shoebox size, and this is exactly what fits on that last little space that I had. And these are really useful as well. This one, for example, holds all of my notions. And for me, my notions would be things like elastics. I tend to buy these when they go on sale for half price. So I've got a lot of different sizes and colors of elastic, extra pins, I don't know, just regular notions, extra doodads and things in there. I have an empty box because 4 of these fit, so I just bought 4 of them all at once. Not sure I'm going to use that one for yet. This one is all full of ribbons, so that's kind of nice. This one is just for more or less crafting stuff, like my glue gun, which I had taken out the other day. I could put it back in. Glue guns. I've got a few really fun little pin cushions in here. I don't know why they're in there, but they're in there. So I have room for more crafting stuff in here. Oops, where's the label? So those aren't quite as exciting, but that's what I have in there. And then when these stack up 4 high, right on top of that, I have this little box, which is my sewing machine parts kit. These are all spare parts for vintage sewing machines. I do have a love of vintage sewing machines. I own 14 now vintage sewing machines of my own, which I do rotate and use, and then 1 modern computerized Husqvarna Viking. And sometimes I do fix these up and then I sell them at the craft fair. So it's a fun little hobby of mine, but this is all of basically my parts. So this sits on top of there. We've made it to the end of what fits in that closet. It seems like a lot, doesn't it? So these are actually my sewing boxes, and you know, sometimes people will have something like this or something like this with a lid, and that's their sewing box. I love these for a couple of reasons. Again, they're Sterilite, and one of the reasons I like them really well is that they fit, they're modular to these Sterilite bins that I got for the closet. They fit right in the groove and can slide back and forth, and they're sort of locked in there, and that fits my needs fantastically. So I have 3, and you'll notice one is a different color. The 2 blue ones are for my general sewing and crafting, and one of them, I believe it's this one, this is my actual sewing box. And I love these because I can see through them, unlike our traditional sewing box. They have the different tiers, which can be removed. All of my little goodies I need, everything is right in there. For example, this row here has all my general stuff. I've got a seam gauge here for making sure that my seams are correct, a little pair of scissors, tailor's chalk, a seam gauge. There's a bunch of bobbins for the different sewing machines. I believe these are class 66 bobbins. I've got my featherweight bobbins and my 301 bobbins in here. A little emery strawberry. I've got needle threaders. I got a whole tin in here. Oh, these are my touch and sew bobbins. And there's tins in here where I keep all of my sewing needles. Just all that sort of stuff just fits really nicely in here. And I don't really have to dig for them too much. They're all here. If I had a big sewing box with a little tray inside, take out the tray and everything just dumps inside, but this is tiered. So I just remove the tier if I want to get to the next row. Easy peasy. And in here you can see I have all my scissors. So I have my fabric scissors. These ones are actually for knit fabrics. I have my pattern cutting scissors, only use this for patterns. I have my pinking shears, and you don't see them here, but I do have another pair of scissors I use for all of my cottons and other fabrics. I'm really particular about my scissors, and one of my rules, which is standard I think for most sewists, never use your fabric scissors for anything but fabric. Never use them for cutting patterns. So that's why I have a separate pair of scissors for patterns than I do. And you really, I guess, don't have to have a separate pair of scissors for your cottons and your knits. Just the knits wear them down a little bit more. So I like to have a pair for the knits, and then I have a gold-handled pair for regular scissors. And I do also have just a plain old pair of Fiskars here, just for general stuff. If there's something I need to cut or do something with, I don't want to use my good scissors, they are there. I also have a little pair of embroidery scissors here that I like to keep at the machine when I am sewing. And then I actually have a pin cushion in here. This is a magnetic pin cushion. Believe it or not, I have 4 of these. These ones here have some, these are glass head pins. I particularly like them because you can iron over them if you need to. But the reason I have 4 of them, and again, they're all different colors as well, going with the theme here, is they're categorized. So I have one that holds my knit pins, which are ballpoint pins, so that they don't break the threads in the fabric. Some are like really fine, some are a little less fine, and I have one for quilting. So I have them so I don't have to change them out, take them all out, put them in a pin cushion, or I put them in a box and then change the pins when I'm sewing something different. I can just grab the pin cushion that's appropriate for the fabric I'm using. And then on top holds my most commonly used threads. And I have to say I'm sort of a thread snob. I really love Gutermann thread. Mettler thread's pretty good. I've used Sulky before, but my favorite type of thread. So I've got all kinds of colors in here. And then this is kind of nifty. This is like a little bobbin tree. So you can just slip your bobbins in and out of there, and it holds your thread and keeps it from tangling. I kind of love this. It came with 6 high, and this particular box fits 3 and 3. So I can keep 2 rows of bobbins in there. So this is my main run. So this is the one I use whenever I'm sewing. I just pull this thing out. This is sort of an overflow one. Didn't really think I needed it, and then I realized I did. So this has got overflow thread. It has some fray check for sewing. Just, you know, different little doodads in here. Here I have a few parts. These little spool pin doilies that I make. There's quite a few of those in there. So little stuff on top. Here I also keep my bigger spools, my larger spools of thread. And this row has all of my pins. I have a lot of pins. I'm not exactly sure how that happened, but it did. Again, I've got applique pins. I have quilting pins. And I have, you know, like I said, 4 magnetic pin cushions. So these are on a pin cushion. These ones, these fine glass head ones are on one. I have one for ball point pins. And I forget what the 4th one is. But anyway, and then I also have, they're not really all in here right now, but I have these little boxes which hold my Wonder Clips. I have mini Wonder Clips, and then I have like regular size Wonder Clips. And they fit really well in these little boxes, which again, fits right on here. It should probably go in my quilting box, really. And then I just have, here's my pin cushion with the, this one has the ballpoint pins in it. And this is just some random other sewing tools. I have a couple of rotary cutters. This one's in here right now. This is an extra pair of scissors. Didn't know what to do with. And then I have 2 vintage pairs of scissors in here. They're Weiss, W-I-S-S. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but these are vintage scissors. And these are vintage pinking shears. So those are kind of fun. And then my last one is my one that I use for quilting. It's not very full right now because I'm currently taking a quilting class, and most all of my supplies are in a flat box because this is kind of hard to drag around with all your quilting stuff you have to take. So this is, like I said, is pretty empty at the moment, but it's just like the other one. It's got a extra package of needles in here. Usually I have my current thread and stuff. And by the way, this upper tray comes out. So if you don't want to use a tray and you just want an open one, you can do that too. And that's why this is a different color. All my quilting little boxes are in this other color, the little flat ones that I take to class. I've got thread here, down here. I've just got basting, or the pins for when you're putting together your quilt, safety pins, and random little stuff. So these actually sit right on top of a stack, and right out of the way and do fit in the closet. It's absolutely wonderful. So there's basically all the totes that go in my closet. I know we haven't talked about patterns, and this video is kind of long, so I will probably put that into another video. So hopefully that gives you some ideas and makes you understand that if you live in a small space, it doesn't mean you can't do the things you love. You just have to be a little more thoughtful and a little more creative about how you plan to do those special activities and crafts and hobbies. So until next time, where there's a will, there's a way. All of my sewing equipment and fabric for garments and quilting fit up here on the shelf of this closet in their totes. Made it work.